At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout out to subscribers. As always, thank you so very much, because I wouldn't be able to do all of this if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are watching, listening, supporting, sharing, all of it. So thank you so very much. There is, as always, a lot going on, and I feel like I'm always saying that, but but it's true. It is true. There's a lot of different shit going on, and it has been a lot of fun. Also, I just recently put out some National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week t-shirts and everything. So like my phone is just exploding right now. And mostly because people are asking questions like, when are they going to arrive? And by the time this episode comes out, it won't be that time yet. It'll be just before that time. Either way, a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of conferences. Conference season is already in full force, and I will be at the next one. I'll be at, actually, it'll just be in a few weeks. It won't be a conference, but it'll be out at the Mayan Ranch, and that is with the 360-degree dispatcher that's run by Joe Serio. And if you've never attended that one before, please do so. It is an excellent one. It's a week out in Texas on a ranch, literally a ranch, with all kinds of things going on and sessions, a lot of powerful stories. I've been out there a few times already to be their closer, and I've done Imagine Listening out there, and it has been amazing every single time. So if you get a chance, make sure to check that one out. You can check them out on social media. You can find Joe Serio all over the place, but especially for the 360-degree dispatcher. So make sure to check that out. That one is coming up, and then I'm going to be the keynote speaker for the Texas Public Safety Conference, and that one's going to be out in Galveston, and that'll be a good one as well. I'll be doing an emergency landing. I will also be doing Imagine Listening out there, as well as recording a bunch of episodes with all of the attendees. So if you're going to be out there, please make sure to check out the opening session, as well as Imagine Listening, and find me in the expo hall, and let's record an episode. All right. We got all of that, and I'm super excited for my guest today. We were already talking and laughing and talking shit earlier. So I'm excited to have her on and to get started here. So today my guest is Emily, and she is a CTO with Cobb County 911 out of Georgia.
Hey there. I love how you mentioned talking shit, because that's my love language. So like, that's how you know I like you, is
yes,
when we talk shit. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Oh man. Yep. See, we're cool. We could have been coworkers, man. Shit.
Yeah. Super excited to be talking to you.
Oh, same. This is going to be fun. I was at your center a few months ago, and which you guys have an excellent setup, just like walking around through there. But to me, it is probably not for you like this anymore because you've been there. You're
Yeah.
going on about 7 years, right?
Yeah, May will be 7 years. May
Awesome.
23rd to be exact.
Oh, that's about a week before my birthday. My birthday is May 14th. So
All
awesome.
right.
And it just, so the reason I say that is because my center, there were only 5 consoles and there were 3 of us on at a time. So yeah, when Sam was taking Sarah and I through there, I'm looking around like, damn, like this is cool, but also slightly overwhelming. And I'm not even working in dispatch.
Yeah. I went to the Denise Amber Lee Be the Difference, and I was talking to a lot of people, and I went to my director and I'm like, man, I know we're a big center, but I didn't realize like how small most centers are. And everyone's like, our shift is the size of a center in most places. So we had a revamp of the whole center in 2021, and it was not as nice. They redid everything. It's great, but it can be overwhelming. Even being there, it can get loud. It can be overwhelming. But it's what I've been used to. So it's been kind of just normal for me. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just normal.
That's a good thing. That's definitely good. But again, like for me, like kind of comparing a little bit, especially when I very first started dispatching, it was just me. It was a small police department. I think there was about 12 sworn officers. That's including the sergeant, lieutenant, and the chief. Oh yeah, super small. And it's just me for 8 hours.
Wow.
So when things went to hell, it definitely went to hell. And my ass is in this old freaking chair. Okay, so this is going to be stupid. And I don't know why I would do this. It wasn't like there was somebody there who was rating me with like a number 10 or something, But okay, so picture this. I'm sitting at my console, right? And it's just me. And when shit was going crazy behind me, there was this this cabinet that held all of our maps and a bunch of other books and stuff to look up things.
Supplies, yeah.
Yeah, so I would push off the desk and spin and snag what I had to get, push off again and spin back. No one's there giving me points. I don't know why the hell I'm spinning in my chair.
It makes the day go by a little faster.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe I felt like I was moving faster by spinning, like pushing, spinning, grabbing, spinning, and coming back. Did you have a
wireless headset?
No.
So I would do that, and I would tie myself to the chair. So I would anytime, I feel like I'm on a 4-foot leash, right?
Yeah.
But I move and I fidget, as you're gonna see, and I get wrapped in the chair quite a bit. So I can only imagine.
That's hilarious. So the next time that I'm going to have to ask Sam, I'm going to have to say, look, if you're ever there when Emily's there and she's tied up, you need to send a picture and send it to me because I need to see this shit.
She has seen that firsthand a few times. She used to be on the same shift years ago, and she's seen that firsthand. It's been quite interesting. So in our center, of course, everyone's understaffed right now. So we're bare bones. We've actually had to shut down radios to combine them. And I think our shift with supervisors, and they can have up to 4 on a shift, we're right around 16 or 17 people if we're staffed like we want to be. But most of them are starting with 12, 13. And that's bare minimum, we have a lot of people in the pipeline coming through recruitment and in training right now. It's just getting them through training. I'm from northern Pennsylvania, so I told you a little bit about that. I'm from the middle of nowhere. Everyone thinks of Pennsylvania as Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. No, I'm from Calville, basically. It's the middle of nowhere.
Is that the actual name?
No, but it's called Powder Sport, so it's close. But there are more deer than people in this town, and Oh yeah, no joke. It's beautiful, but nothing going on. So my cousin, she keeps saying, come back home," and I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like my center, there's always something happening. I would come back and be the only person on shift, and I would be so bored that I would go insane. Just like I like this. I like the shenanigans, as I like to say it. The
Perfect.
shenanigans are where my calling is. But I'm like, I couldn't go home and just like, down here you get people who call for cows in the road. We would never call up there for that. Like I would be bored. The state trooper barracks, I went and saw them. They take maybe 2 calls a night, and it's just them. So maybe two 911 calls, if that, a night.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Well, it kind of makes me think of the Upper Peninsula, the UP up in Michigan.
Yeah.
Like there was a summer, I believe it was 2014, and I was traveling up there once a week, every week for almost the whole summer, which driving there was a
Yeah.
biatch. Like it was super long, man. It was like 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I would be driving straight, and I would get over there. But I remember someone telling me, and nobody do this at home, because they were saying,
Well,
I mean,
you have to put that disclaimer.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, people were saying, well, you can speed through there if you want. I'm like, hell no. Like, I'm not gonna get pulled over or something. There's nobody around there. That's like God's country, man. Like there's nobody there. And they said, well, that's exactly why we're saying, because there's like 2 troopers for the entire area. So you'll be fine. And I thought, nah, son, like that'll be my luck.
That would be you. Yeah.
Yes, that'll be me passing a speed limit or something. And then, woo, I'm pulling you over. It's like, cause I'm a dumbass. Cause I listened to somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like.
Well, it's funny you say that. So the name of the town, right? Coudersport has a name, but the actual county is Potter County, and all of the signs coming into the county says God's country on it.
Oh, for real?
Potter County, God's country. No joke. Yeah. So if you Google Potter County, Pennsylvania, you actually will see all of those signs.
That's badass.
It's the middle of nowhere. The closest Walmart was in New York State, so we were right on the New York line. So it was about 45 minutes to a Walmart. Yeah, in a different states.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so we had about 2,500 people at its like best.
Wow. So
everything was volunteer. Yeah. So dispatch was dispatched through, I believe, that the next county over. But fire and medical, all of that was volunteer. My parents were very involved in all of that growing up. And then police, I think they had 2 police in the whole like department for the town, but they the state troopers would handle any calls of service if needed. And like there was only 1 state trooper for like that whole area. So it was crazy.
What?
So,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let's back up. Let's jump in our DeLorean and go back in time. How did you get started? Because it sounds like you kind of come from a public safety type family. So how did this all begin?
Okay. So this is one of those stories. This is one of those stories you're going to enjoy.
Okay. Awesome.
Just this first sentence, actually, I fell into it. And I use the word fell very specifically. So a little about me, like growing up, my parents ran an ambulance service. So I grew up in the medical field. I was a patient that they strapped to like the backboard, flipped upside down, and left me. Because it was fun, and I was a child. Yeah. It was, I was like the young little sister of everybody in the ambulance hall. And I knew I never wanted anything to do with medical at all like that. My dad was a firefighter. My grandfather was a firefighter. Like everybody in my family came from some type of like public safety, public service. So fast forward, go through high school, go to college. 2 weeks shy of my first semester, like my finals in my first semester. And I went to an ag school. So I didn't have funding. High school sucked. Let's just say that high school sucked. We'll get into that in a little bit of part of why. But I got into an ag school. I was very big in ag. I'm from the middle of nowhere, focusing on communications. And this ag school in the middle of nowhere, southern Georgia, you could actually board your own horses. You could bring your horses to school. Yeah. Right. So there was my friend there had a horse who loved me, would like walk circles around me. So I finally convinced her, I'm like, I want to ride a horse. I haven't in years, like I want to. And the moment I get on that horse, we get into the arena. Freak accident. Murphy's Law, it was for me in a past life, I swear, maybe this life. When I get on the horse, she got stung. We didn't know this until after. And she just took off full, like nothing stopping her. So I wasn't situated on her right. So my left foot, my right foot was on the stirrup. My left foot was not. And she was a barrel racer. So she would go at a corner straight on and then like throw her ass around the corner and go. So we went around the arena twice. Like she wasn't listening to the reins. She wasn't listening to any like leg work, any verbal. Her owner came up and like tried to stop her. And it was it. So I saw the corner coming and she like went straight on and went to like throw herself around. And it was like time slowed down for about 10 seconds. And it was like, I can either try to jump, but my foot is situated enough, I can't get it out. I will end up underneath her and trample. I can try to hold on through the corner, which is what I ultimately did. And I was thrown, but fell off a horse. I was thrown from her into a metal pole. I broke my back. Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
I didn't know it was broken. Long story short, I don't know if I blacked out. I ended up completely facing the opposite direction. We have no idea. I got up and I called my mom because, you know, what do you do when you get hurt? You call your mom.
Right.
And I said, Mom, I got thrown from a horse. I fell off a horse tonight. And she said, well, you're going to hurt. I'm like, yeah. I said, everything works. Like my toes move, my legs move. I should be fine. And I walked across campus and I went and had dinner at the dining hall. And I came back.
Wait a minute. This was after this happened?
Directly after I went and I had dinner.
Holy shit.
So
okay.
I didn't go to the doctor until 3 days later. So I went to the doctor 3 days later and I told him, I said, I tore all of the muscles of my lower back. I know that. And he came in after the x-rays and he's like, well, you were right. I really don't like being an 18-year-old telling, like the doctor telling me that I'm right. And he said, all of your muscles were torn and are still actively bleeding on the x-ray. They didn't do an MRI, just the x-ray. And I'm like, I thought that x-rays only showed soft tissue. And they're like, yeah, there's enough blood in there that all we see is inflammation and blood. Sent me home on bed rest. I dropped school. I had to take a medical withdrawal. And I needed a job. So I got the first one, which was Subway, because I worked there at high school. I managed that for about 3 years. Wanted to move up, went to just a random call center. I say random, but working customer service. Management was terrible. And side note of me, I tell you, like crazy stuff. I ran an exotic animal rescue for 12 years.
What?
Yeah. So have you ever heard of a sugar glider?
Yes.
I was about to say they're similar to a flying squirrel. They have a pouch
Right.
like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
kangaroo. Yeah. So we ran a rescue for them, my parents and I, for 12 years, starting in high school. Yeah. I ended up meeting a lot of really cool people, but on that journey, I met my now supervisor, and his wife adopted a sugar glider from me. And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, you know, what do you guys do? And he started telling me about his job. I'm like, man, I could do that. I could do that. So, side note, when I tell you I like to do a lot of, like, I have my hands in everything, I volunteered for canine search and rescue. I have been doing that since longer than I've been in 911. So when I started hearing about that, and I'm like, man, that's a job I could do. I mean, I go look for dead people like that, you know, it's fine. So I applied that night, and about 6 months later, not even, about 4 months later, I got the job, and I've been here ever since. So I fell into dispatching.
Right.
They say everything happens for a reason.
Full circle.
Yeah. If it weren't for me breaking my back, there was no way I wouldn't have ever met my supervisor, and I wouldn't have ever ended up in 911. And here we are.
Holy hell. That's probably one of the most unique ones.
Yeah.
This is going to be like episode 490 something. And I don't think I've heard something like this one.
I fell into dispatching and like,
a lot of people say that. I have said that myself, but you literally.
It's really funny to think that like literally everything happens for a reason, or like that butterfly effect, but that it is literally like one big butterfly effect, because like I was looking at going into like mass media in a sense, and like we hate the media now, right? Like it's not one. They're like and I was looking at going into, and I started like tweaking, what I really wanted to do. But I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was really good at writing and English. Like that was my forte, even if I didn't like it. And I was like, communications, and then we'll figure it out. And I ended up in a communications job.
Wow. Yeah. Just, I feel you on that. I'm kind of the same way, where I loved writing, and there was all types of different things that I wanted to do. And I remember I kept saying to people, like, if I could combine somehow my love for writing, design, and now 911, I would be doing my dream job. And I found a way to do it.
And now look at you. Yeah.
It's crazy. So holy crap. Okay.
Yeah.
Literally fell in. All right. My mind is blown here a bit. So you end up, what's that?
It gets better.
Oh man. Holy shit. Okay. So you end up meeting your now supervisor. You end up, figuring it out, like, yeah, I wanted to do this. I can do this. What was it like for you going in? Like, what was that interview process? How long did that last? And then when you started out, like, also, did you do a sit along at all? Or did you
we
just
did a
like
4-hour sit along?
Okay, let's start with that. How did that go for you? Was there anything that surprised you at all, or was it like, oh, this is what I thought?
Okay, I don't remember very many calls from like early on.
Yeah.
But I will always remember the last call of my sit along. We were on the kind of ritzier side of the county, that radio, and we take a call for a pit bull breaking into somebody's house.
Not Pitbull the rapper, but a pit bull, but Pitbull the dog.
Like the
dog. A dog breaking in?
Yeah, I have no idea, but the call was basically that a pit bull had broken the window and like entered the home, literally breaking and entering, dog edition, I guess. But I don't even know if he's now a supervisor too, the one I sat with. I don't even know if he remembers the story, but it was significant enough that I'm like, man, I have to know what happens, like working with dogs. And now like this, I want to know. Sure enough, there was a dog in the house when they got there. The window was broken. The pit bull came through the window. I have never had a call like that since, ever. But
whoa.
Yeah, she locked herself in the closet, I think. And the officers got the dog, and so
that dog was a dick.
Yeah, so I ended up staying. My like ride along 4 hours was over, and I'm like, I gotta hear what this. I gotta know. And so I ended up staying like 10 minutes over just to get the like resolution of that call. And the interview process, mind you, I was a baby. I applied at 20. I got hired, my birthday's in April, and I got hired in May. So I was like a month, into 21. And I didn't drink, I didn't like party, like high school wasn't a partying time for me. College, the like one semester I went to, I was kind of with the nerd group, man. Like we longboarded across campus at night. We didn't go out drinking. And yeah, I don't. And so in my interview, the like IA person who was doing it, she's like, man, I want to clone you. Like, can I just clone you? Because at this point, I only had 2 tattoos, and it was a dream catcher and a compass. So it's not like it was anything like outrageous that they had to like, look at. I didn't drink. I've never done drugs. And she's like, man, I just want to clone you. Like, you've got everything. I'm like, I guess it's a good thing, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
you're like, here's my hair, I think.
yeah,
I don't know.
it's a redhead, so I'm mutated. So here you go. I don't like.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. So I actually at the time our hiring process took a lot longer. So it took about 6 months
Mhm.
typically. I applied in January and I was in May. So it was like actually it was end of January. So it was a little over 4 months. Um, we did the background, you know, the psych, the polygraph, like all of that. And we did a hearing medical test, just a brief one that'll play a part in my later dispatching journey.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the training ended up being about a year for me from start to finish. I say
Wow.
finish, but yeah. Typically, our probation period's 18 months.
Mhm.
I had the best trainer, hands down. Everyone says that, but no, I had the best trainer. She's now a supervisor too, and I go to her and I'm like, what do I do with this if problem I'm having with a recruit, or how do I, and I bounce ideas off her, and she's like work mom 101, like really. But so I ended up doing phones. We start with phones, and then we go into radio dispatching. So the radio dispatching took 5 months, maybe 6 months. So, but we have to hit, at the time we had 11 radios. So we had to hit 11. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
See, so
So,
there's a lot of differences there, and that's why I'm having these reactions. I'm sure
yeah.
people are watching this like, is he okay?
Yeah.
Because like for us, I mean, we had main channels, and I mean, we had a lot of departments that we were running it for,
Yeah.
but I've seen your center and I've seen how it's split up and how people are running certain things, and it's just
Yeah.
what it's nuts. So you're getting in there and you're learning all of this. Would you say that the stuff that you did, your employment before going into dispatch, kind of prepared you for what it was that you were going to be getting into?
No.
No, not at
Not
all.
at all. We had a conversation at Be the Difference. A friend I made there, and she's like, "Have you noticed a lot of people are in like the food industry or like service industry?" I'm like, "No," and I'm like going back, and I'm like, "Well, I was at Subway." She's like, "Well, that counts." I'm like, "Okay, I guess."
So the multitasking one, right? The
Yeah,
multitasking, but
that's
also
true.
if you have people who are coming in on their lunchtime and they
Yeah,
need to move fast,
that's
might be
true.
pissy with you,
Yeah,
or just someone who's coming in who's just being just
that's
however,
true.
some of that stuff that you have to deal, like for me, before I got into dispatch, all I had was a lot of retail stuff and retail
Yeah,
management. So a lot of those, like, people would come in and they would be assholes
right.
because whatever
It's
they
you. You're the
bought,
problem.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever they bought, it was actually their mistake, but they needed
yeah,
to put that on somebody else, so of course
that's
it's gonna
true.
be me. So
Yeah,
a lot of that, customer service and talking and trying to maneuver around certain,
I can see that. Yeah.
conversations, that's you as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I will say, like, not to pat myself on the back, but like at 18, I have never tipped anybody. Maybe like a dollar, a few dollars at Subway. I've never really like, and I'm a big tipper, and I've never been like, hey, let's tip. And I was getting like $20 a day in tips myself. Um, because
Nice.
like I was in the store, I was opener, so I opened the store. I was there from 6 to 10 or 12 by myself. And so it was one person. I'm making the bread, I'm doing all of the prep, and then I'm handling everybody. So I had my regulars, and like they took care of me. At 18, they were like, "Hey, you're getting your ass handed to you. Here you go," and like would drop out like 20 in the tip jar. Like,
I mean, that's
but
pretty badass. So, I
yeah,
mean, just the way that you were working, the way you were treating people, but
yeah,
also just maneuvering all of it. Man, there's a lot of times where, I will be sitting, I don't know, wherever, and I'll just kind of think back and think about. No, here's an example. Someone who is just being annoying as shit, in a store, or if I'm at a restaurant or whatever.
right,
I see other people end up like yelling at them or whatever for whatever
yeah,
reason it is that they are having an issue. And I've been with people where they're like, "Man, I feel like saying something." I'm like, "Nah, just let it go." Like, it'll just let it play out. We'll just, watch if anything happens.
Right.
We'll call somebody. And they're like, dude, how can you remain so calm? I'm like, 13 and a half years of listening to people lose their shit because they're living their nightmare.
That's true.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's how.
That's true. Yeah.
Yes. That. And so I've been out almost, this July will be 10 years that I've been out of dispatch. However, being a night owl and my dispatch ear has never gone away. I can sit somewhere and just listen and pinpoint every conversation and hear what's going on. And like, if I'm with people, they'll say, what's going on over there? I'm like, dude, you have no idea, but it's amazing.
So I have a slightly different experience there. Because I can't even call it a dispatch ear before I started working there. I read lips. And before working at 911, I would catch myself reading other people's conversations and not meaning to. And, and so I'm like, oh man, like whatever's happening. And they're like, how do you know this? Like I'm reading lips and I didn't mean to, but this is what's going on. Now in dispatch, I do have that radio ear. But it's like, I've had to really like focus it. So, to explain, I have hearing aids. To further explain, I was deaf as a kid. And I'm waiting for this reaction. Yeah.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. So, not fully, like I could hear some, but it wasn't, I was 85% hard of hearing, considered deaf. So I've had a ton of surgeries. And so now I say dispatch was the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I come into it and I'm having to focus and like really, like, I don't want to say force the dispatch ear, but really focus and like tune that in to where I can focus on like that one caller where you can just pick up any single thing. I can now, but I have to really focus. Well, since getting hearing aids, not even a year and a half ago, it's been really weird. Like you say, my center is like, can be overwhelming. It's even worse when you get hearing aids and you realize that like you didn't know how much you weren't hearing. And so now you hear somebody behind you and you're like, oh my goodness, and they're like across the room. But you can hear it now. Yeah. So
I can't even imagine that. But
I never realized how much I didn't hear until, or even like how much I relied on reading lips until the mask. Like I couldn't, with masks of COVID and stuff, like I couldn't hear anything.
Right.
So I'm like, there's no point in me talking to anybody. Like I can't hear you. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now there's so many questions. I don't even know where to start.
I know.
Jeez.
I was waiting for your reaction there because everyone's either like, there's no way, or they're like, they always have some type of like outlandish like reaction of like, hey, I was deaf as a kid.
No, for me, it was just my eyes.
Yeah.
Just, so okay. How did that going back to interviewing?
So
how did that play out in the interview? Because I can only imagine, it's whoever is there talking with you and everything having even more questions about it once, they find this part out as well. Was there more questions or any concerns or anything?
Let's back up, get into the DeLorean again and all the way back to Pennsylvania.
All right, let's go.
So when I was young, to kind of give you the whole thing, I started having ear infections at 18 months old. And it was like, I would end one antibiotic to start another one. And it got just one after the other. I had tubes 4 times in each ear. 2 sets of those tubes were placed wrong because small town doctors and not great. Yeah. So one set of tubes they were tilted wrong. And it gave a very bad infection, a direct path to my brain. So, yeah.
Whoa.
So they basically at like 5 gave me as much antibiotics as they physically could. killed my immune system. My one doctor saved my life. Like, the easiest to explain is one doctor absolutely saved my life. I just found an email for him. I want to meet him. I haven't seen him since I was little, and there's no way he doesn't remember me. So, but he did a surgery that he basically reconstructed my whole right ear, took all of my bones out, reshaped them, drilled in, released an infection, put everything back, and made my hearing go from 85% hearing loss to about a 35% hearing loss. So yeah,
Wow.
he not only saved my life, he like restored my hearing. I went through 5.5 years of speech therapy. So it was all as I was learning to speak. So like if I would hear things wrong, I would say things wrong. So like with my mom, I'd run up to my mom at like, just toddler age, and I would say, "I love you, mommy." And she's like, "You're welcome." Everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" I was hearing "I love you" and "thank you" as each other. So I heard wrong. So I was speaking wrong.
Right.
So I went through speech therapy for 5.5 years, and you can still, all of my like close friends make fun of me because there are words that I can't say, and like I navigate around them really well. And they like catch one, and they're like, "Wait, what was that? What was that?" And
of course, because friends are gonna do that.
and like I learned to speak by like basically how I learned to read, and so of course English is terrible with that because nothing is ever like how it's written.
Right. Yeah.
So fast forward, I'm technically within normal range overall for hearing. So when I got hired in 2016, I passed the hearing test. There wasn't any conversation to be had about it. They didn't know. So growing up, I never told anybody, and it was always like I was in the hospital for weeks at a time, and I would miss at least 2 weeks out of every school year. Every year they tried to hold me back, not because of my grades, but because of like me missing school.
Mhm.
And all of my kids, like my friends, just thought that I had like moved or something. Like they didn't know that I was actually very sick. I fast forward when I said high school sucked for me, my freshman year. I was pretty much outgrown it at this point. Started teaching myself sign language. So like the hand movements and stuff, I've got to like watch. Some of them are signs, some of them are me speaking with my hands. In high school, I ended up having an ear infection that they couldn't find, which was kind of my MO. And doctors wouldn't listen to us. And I ended up in the hospital for a week and a half. And they were trying to figure out surgery and everything. Finally, they listened to us. They gave me the antibiotics that, like I said, hey, this is what works. And so I come back to school, and everyone's like, where are you? Freshman year of high school. And it kind of came out that, hey, like I was really sick. And in the time I was in all honors classes, one of my teachers was from India. I had a very hard time with accents at the time.
Mhm.
And she would call me out in school. I finally had to be like removed from her class, not because I wasn't smart enough, but because she would not actually teach me without like bullying me for something that I couldn't even, like help. So fast forward to everyone kind of knew I kind of fell into like the deaf group in school. I started like signing and like became really good friends with them.
Mhm.
And then fast forward my adult, life, dispatch didn't know. I passed the hearing test. Everything's great. My life is fantastic. Like that's behind me now. Other than like reading lips, and you go long enough hiding something, you hide it really well. And so dispatch never knew. I would mention it maybe here or there. And it wasn't until, what are we in, 2023?
Mhm.
2021 that my life kind of flipped upside down. So dispatch being like the best worst thing for my hearing, I focused and I could hear, and I thought my hearing was getting better. And in 2021, I started noticing my hearing is changing. And 2021 tried to like kill me. Like anything that could go wrong that year really did. Like there were so many deaths, very bad breakup. I was supposed to move, that fell through. So anybody in my center kind of saw me at like one of the lowest in my life. And then I started noticing my hearing had I thought it was getting worse. And so finally in 2022, I went back to the employee clinic, and I had a hearing test to compare it to my first one when I got hired. And they said it was significantly worse, like bad. And I'm like, okay, if I lose my hearing, I lose my career. And at this point, I'm 5.5 years in, like, this is my career. Like, I'm really starting a name for myself in my department. And it was only a few months, but it was like the heaviest few months of my career, because I'm sitting here trying not to show anybody at work, but also like feeling like I can't hear, especially my left ear, which was the one that I hadn't had surgery on. That was like my outside ear. I have a radio ear and then my outside ear. And I'm like, I'm missing stuff going on like around me, and not enough to like detriment my job, but enough that I didn't like it. So we went to an audiologist, and I talked to her, and I think the worst thing I could have done is go. I don't even know if I went after work that day, but I went and I had like a major hearing test, and the hearing test showed your hearing's not as bad as what they said it was, and that hurt. I'll get into why that hurt in a little bit. But I'm like, I am struggling. How can, like, I don't understand how my hearing can't be that bad. But she said, well, there's nerve damage in your right ear, which we expected. She said, but your ears aren't processing things at the same level. So you're not hearing things where your brain can understand them. And she said, let's just try hearing aids on. She said, I have a few people who have about your hearing range, and it is life-changing for them. So I tried on, and it's really cool. When you go there, you can actually, when they put the hearing aids in, they actually adjust it to what you need right there, even the test hearing aids. And have you ever seen the video of like a baby putting glasses on or like hearing for the first time?
Yes.
That was me at 26.
Wow.
So I took my mom, because again, like, mom comes everywhere with me, right? But we lost a lot of medical records when we moved, and so she was like human medical record keeper. So I brought her, and so that she could explain anything that I might mess up or miss. And she and I are very close, but like when we go to a store together, she'll talk to me and then she'll start walking away. And I'm like, you have been with me my whole life. You know I can't hear you. And or she'll turn and I'm like, I can't hear you. And I get really mad at her. So in the hearing test, I tried the hearing aids on, and she turned around away from me, walked to the corner of the room, about 10 feet away, and lowered her voice. And was like, Emily, can you hear me? And I just started bawling. I turned around to see how far she was, and I literally like blubbering fool at this point. So I was that baby at 26. And so I got my hearing aids, and I wasn't going to tell anybody at work because, like, maybe not the dispatchers, but like I have a lot of very close officer friends. Mm-hmm. And like I work with them in the field for search and rescue. So I'm very close to them. I think like a cop, like that's how I was raised. And I didn't really care about fellow dispatchers because like I'm still here doing my job. I cared about around this time is when we got a new director. So Melissa walks in and I'm like, hi, you don't know me, but I might get hearing aids. And she was fantastic. Like they've all been really, really great about it. First day I got them, it's overwhelming. And then I didn't want my officers to know, but at the time I had an in-ear headset, so I needed to put it to an over-the-ear headset. I messaged my sergeant and I'm like, hey, like nobody knows yet, but I have hearing aids. It's the first day with them. I might be asking you guys to repeat yourselves just so I can mess with my equipment. And he was so good. He was like, hey, he big brothered me like the whole night. He's like, no, I got you. Don't worry about it. Like, you do what you have to do. Like, you're great on the radio anyways. You're fine. And anytime anybody asked him, he was like, she's having equipment issues. She's fine. Like, really like big brothered. And since then, I wasn't going to tell anybody. I made a post in 911 Wonder Woman, and I said that right the first time. I am proud of myself.
Well done.
I can never say that. I made a post saying, like, I guess it's time to finally, like, embrace myself, right? And, like, this is a part of me. It was a part that I didn't think I was going to have to deal with until I was, like, 50. Like, when you're 40 sounds, like, so far away. And I was like, yeah, when I'm old and, like, 40, I might have hearing aids. And then reality was I got them at 26. And so I posted in there basically saying that. And the outpour of, like, comments and stuff was just completely overwhelming. So now those who don't know, it's really funny. I'll say something and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I have hearing aids. And I like whip it out and they're like, what? And it's always fun. My audiologist loves because they actually match my hair.
Oh, perfect.
You can see I have blue in my hair and they're blue.
Very nice. Yeah.
So my audiologist loves it every time. She's got to take a picture.
Wow.
So, now you wouldn't even really notice. Like I don't mind sharing because it's like, it's a part of me, but it's like, I just have a few extra like mechanical parts, but one of my coworkers, I said something, I said I was afraid of telling anybody. And she goes, why? If it will help you do your job better, what's the problem? And I had never seen it that way. I'd always saw it as like a handicap or something to hold me back. And she's like, but if it helps you do your job and continue to do your job well, what's the problem? Wow. That's huge. So,
damn.
Yeah. So that was an emotional few months of, if I lose my job, I literally like, yeah, you have backup plans, but like, you don't want to, like, I'm pouring everything in. I don't know how to half-ass anything. So if I'm pouring something into it, I don't want to start over. I've done that enough, breaking my back and everything else. So, it's been.
So, wow.
Your reactions.
This is amazing. Like this is a powerful story. So I have a session that I do that's called Triumph Through Struggle. And this is exactly that. Like you are literally the title of my session. My session is about, when you first start out and how, people treat you and how, shit can be bad. Kind of going off of my experience. I just mean the title alone is completely what you just told me. Like, damn. I can't even imagine going through that. I mean, you end up finding out that this is a job that you really dig. You had been dealing with this issue for a while, but then it really came to a head, and then you're trying to figure out how to maneuver it. What is going to happen? There's all of these different, almost like, kind of in a doomsday mode where you're thinking, is this it? Is this going to be it? And then,
literally.
and then you end up going through and coming out on the other end. But I can't imagine that moment where thinking about all those times where you had been, with your mom, as you said, she's with you, you were going to different places. And when she turns around, you couldn't hear her and you're getting upset and everything. But then that moment where she's in a different spot and you can actually hear her, like, damn, like that, goosebumps, like all over the place. Like this is, wow.
It was, and I keep saying life-changing, but like when I didn't realize how much I was missing out on my whole life, I never thought of a hearing loss as a handicap in a sense, or a disability. I was really good friends with a girl in high school, and she has since passed away, but in high school she had like 78 surgeries. She had scoliosis super bad, so she was like 5'0", if not less than that. She had a glass eye. Like, she had and she was fully deaf. Um, and she was one of the best cheerleaders the team had because she would feel the rhythm, not hear it. And just the amount of heart that she had, um, is what I continue to always like strive to. Like, I've never wanted to let it hold me back. But in that moment of, I could really lose everything. Now I realize there's so much more in this industry than just dispatching and
Mhm.
just like answering the phones. Um, but at the time, it was very emotional, very tough to navigate.
I can't even imagine, but I feel it through your words and just listening to you talk about this and how terrifying that had to have been, but also to have that moment where you're back in dispatch, you've got your hearing aids in, you're dialing in for, just being able to listen a lot better and everything, but
Yeah,
also realizing how much it was that you were possibly missing or, little sounds here and there, or even if you're on the phone with somebody,
yeah,
because you've got to listen to the environment of the caller, right? To
right,
hear any other things. And then to be able to do that, I can only imagine that in those moments, you probably felt almost like rejuvenated and just like ready to kick ass and take names even more so. Like
yeah,
that I can't even explain it. It's like when I'll just say it this way. It takes your breath away.
yeah, yeah. And it's really funny. It like rejuvenates you when you talk to callers that like can't hear very well.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh no, I understand. And I think for me, honestly, the part that really stuck was like the officers. Like, my sergeant embraced me so much when I was so afraid of like, so I'm a tactical dispatcher, so I go out on SWAT call outs, and I
Mhm.
like, that is my passion. Like, I told you I love the shenanigans. And I never wanted to tell anybody because I was like, I don't want them to think that I can't be their lifeline. And the outpour of just appreciation and love that, officers have done in multiple times of like, hey, you really handled that radio well. Or in September we had lost two deputies in the line of duty. Well, I actually went to scene and I handled that SWAT call out. And I had so many people put their love out for the dispatcher on the radio at the time, and she did amazing. And I never expected anybody to do the same for me because I was walking into it in the middle of. And it was almost just as hard to like walk into something like that. And I had gotten messages like, you expect your friends to be like, yeah, no, like, we appreciate you on the radio, right? Like, it's like they're not obligated, but they're kind of obligated to be like, yeah, we like you on the radio. But when
Yeah.
a sergeant randomly messages you and is like, hey, I'm glad you were on our radio, or like afterwards, like, you were the best person for that, and whether I agree with that or not, like, it's just the outpouring of like confidence they have in me. Um, I would not be anywhere. I would not still be doing this job if it weren't for that alone. Because I think that was the most rejuvenating of like, I really can do this. I really am good at this, and that's really kept me going.
That that is awesome. And I love that you mentioned as well that with those who end up calling in who can't hear you that well or whichever, and you tell them that what it is that they're going through. I'm a firm believer that there are some phone calls that we take that are meant for us
Yeah.
because we have a certain experience in our past or whichever that allows us to help that caller better than someone else.
Others.
Like, of
Yeah.
course, they would probably do a great job,
Right.
right? However, they wouldn't have that experience or be able to speak to
Right.
someone, or for, like in your case, to be able to say, no, I really do understand. You have the ability to connect with someone on a different
Right.
level that I would never be able to because I don't have that experience. Also,
Yeah.
on top of that, listening to you talk about the folks that you work with, but especially the training that you had, the trainer that you just listening to you talk about that, I feel like that was possibly um, a reason for you to move into a CTO position as well, because
Yeah.
you had a great experience. And the other reason I say that too is because it's always one or the other. Either someone had shit training
Yeah.
and they decided to be a trainer so that
Right.
the others coming in would not have to deal with that type of mess,
Right.
or they had great training and they want to continue that legacy of great training for those coming in. I feel like that was kind of that for you as well.
Yeah. I said in my like 5-year plan, and I didn't realize it was a 5-year plan at the time. I'm like, man, I want TAC dispatch. I want that from the beginning. Like with search and rescue, like I'm like incident like management is what I'm
Mhm.
used to. And so I'm like, this is like right up my alley. It's the shenanigans, it's the like controlling the chaos, and as best as you can. Like, because we all know we really have no control when it's something like that.
Right, yeah.
But um and I said I want TAC dispatch and I want to have that for a year before getting CTO. And I said I don't want CTO before 5 years because I want to make sure if my name's on somebody's like everything, I can handle my shit. And I want to make sure that I am good enough to teach somebody that. And it was almost like my supervisor, who ended up being like my original pod partner. He's like, no, you need to put in for it. And then my original CTO, both of them now supervisors, are like, why aren't you putting in, like, you need to put in for it. And so really pushed me to. And it just happened like a year after I got TAC, I got CTO. So it worked like perfectly. But it like they pushed me. Like she didn't put up with any shit. And I self-doubt a lot. And she didn't have time for it. And it was, and then she pushed me afterwards and she was like, but you're good at what you do. You can do it. Like, do it. And so it was really like kind of a lot of that, of like, I want to make sure that I'm good enough to do it, but also be as good as she is. And how I think of training, I am training my recruits to be better than me. I don't want them to be as good as me. I want them to be better than me. I
There you
want
go.
them to come in and 10 years from now, they're going to be supervisors. They are going to be the ones who are like setting that example. I don't want them to just be where I'm at. Like you always want better. That's
I love that. I I feel the same way because, when I left dispatch and I started doing everything that I'm doing now, my whole mission has been to share these stories that people don't know about, that they don't hear about, that there's more to dispatching than what people think, and that there's more to answering a phone call, that
yeah,
you're not just picking up the phone. And basically, it's to leave this profession in a better spot than
yeah,
where I found it. Because when I started in 2001, the stuff that we're talking about right now, that wasn't that wasn't anything. And that's why conversations like this are so important.
yeah. I am one that, and I think that in the medical field, and like both my dad and my brother actually have a tattoo that says "so others may live," and that's like the medical like quote, right? And I took that with search and rescue because in search and rescue, I wasn't a team that searched for. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog yelling in the background at
No,
me.
you're okay.
Um, in search and rescue, I was on a team who looked for live and deceased missing people. I now am on the state team only looking for missing deceased people, so human remain detection. But even still, I hold that quote very dear because everything I do is so others may live. I lost somebody extremely close at 18, and he was my best friend. And learning to live after someone's death is just as detrimental as learning to live while you're living and while they're living. And so for me in search and rescue, it was so others may live and continue to live. And in 911, I think that's the same as every call you take. Like, it is their worst day. Even if it's just the TV's out, that's still an emergency in their eyes. And it's really that, like, those 5% calls, that I do this so others may live. And that's kind of how I've had to take that, even in some of the worst calls that I've taken, is like, I'm here to better their life if possible, continue their life if possible, and allow them to continue to live. So.
Damn. I this has been a great episode. We still have a little bit left here. I want to there's a couple things I want to hit on.
Yeah.
The first one, though, is, as you're kind of talking about that already, what is, and only if you feel comfortable, of course, but what is, one of the calls that you've taken that just kind of sticks with you?
I have two. Hang on one second. Okay. I have two specific ones. And I've gotten to a point where really I've only had 2.5 calls that have stuck with me in 7 years. I say half because I don't remember anything about the call. I don't remember anything other, like, I don't remember the person, the age. It was a CPR call. And it wasn't even, I've taken CPR calls. It wasn't my first one. But they had set the phone on speaker, and they had set it right beside the chest that they were pumping. And you could hear the chest go down every time. And that stuck with me. Not even because I'm like, I can handle death. I can handle that. But in dispatch, you only get one sense. You only can hear. You can't see. And I really question if this was a job for me, because I would have done better if I was there, if I could hear, if I could see, if I could, like, touch and that, like, hands on and actually help. And so that took some time to process. The other two calls, actually, they both happened around the same time. One was in the fall, if I'm not mistaken, and one was in the spring, like just the following. The first one I actually submitted to you as a 911 story. I took a phone call from a male. I couldn't understand him. The bits and pieces that I could pull out is I didn't mean to. I loved her. But really hysterical. You couldn't understand. I finally got the address, and I went to drop the call as kind of like a trouble unknown call. And I realized one of the smaller cities in our jurisdiction we had dispatched for, we had just turned them over to another dispatch center. And it was like 2 weeks after that. I then realized, crap, I have to transfer that call. Well, the line went silent. And so I transferred it over, and I said, you have a silent 911 call. There's a male hysterical. Like, my first thought was that he found his loved one after committing suicide. And kind of the relationships you have with the centers around you are either great or terrible. Mm-hmm. And I think this one wasn't either one, but that one instance, I'm like, why aren't you doing your job? Because she put it in as like, okay, we'll just put it in as like a check the welfare. I'm like, no, this is like, when I tell you something happened, he is hysterical. Someone is probably dead. Officers get on scene 7 minutes later. The door was open, and I actually talked to the officers afterwards. They said they could smell the gun residue. The male, they went and cleared the house. They found male and female both deceased in the house. The female had multiple gunshot wounds. And the male, one self-inflicted one. The officers, after their investigation, he chased her around the house, shot her multiple times, called me, and we believe that he had muted the phone. I don't think he fully disconnected because it was still connected, and then shot and killed himself. I didn't find out about it until we actually still dispatched their medical and fire. 7 minutes later, we got a call to have fire response to all of our medical calls, for 2 gunshot wound victims, and they were both deceased in the house. So jeez. I was the last person that he talked to.
Damn.
And that one actually wasn't even the worst one. That was the one that happened in the fall. The one in the spring. I couldn't tell you the address. I could tell you the road name. I couldn't even tell you the address.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a male. You could tell he was very distressed, like injured distress. Like you can usually tell when somebody's like really having difficulty breathing. And this time I didn't know what was going on, if it was pain, but he couldn't give me any location. And I actually got subpoenaed to court for this call about 2 years later. And so I actually have a copy I listened to before like preparing for court. Thankfully, I didn't have to go. I was on the phone for 25 minutes, like 22 minutes total. And the first like 7 or 10 minutes, I'm just asking him, what's the address? What's the address? I already had the call in. He might not have known that, but I already had the call in, but I needed to confirm it was townhomes. So I don't remember if we had Rapid at the time. I believe it was Lat Long, and I got the location, and I'm just trying to get him there. And he said there's blood everywhere. He's still in the house, and I have no idea. Like he's very, very short sentences. Blood in the house, or he's still in the house. There's blood everywhere, and I'm like, "Are you hurt? Like what? Tell me what's going on." And he wouldn't tell me anything. He just kept saying, "Help me, help me! I'm gonna die." Um, Officers get there, and they're like, "Come to the door." He can't come to the door. He can't even talk to me. So I had to wait for enough officers to get there to actually break the door and clear the residence. He said he like caught a second wind, and he's like he started yelling to the officers, just break the door down, help me, help me. So officers get in and they clear the residence, and they thought initially he was shot 3 times. This was a call I had no closure on for years. I knew that I stayed on the line for a minute when the officers got there, and then like walked up and they're like, "Tell me who did this to you, buddy." And I'm like, "That's not what you like. Yes, it's what you need, but it's not what you need right now." And long story short, he had a collapsed lung among other things. And so my search and rescue kind of comes in here. He was on his back, if I'm not mistaken, laying on his back, and he kept saying, "Roll me over, I can't breathe." If they, and I'm not saying that he ever would have made it, he wouldn't have, but rolling him over, he might have actually been able to breathe a little better. He still probably couldn't tell us anything, but he wouldn't tell me who it was. And officers get there and found him. They thought shot multiple times. He was actually stabbed and just literally beaten to death. So shortly after that phone call, it was like 22 minutes, not long after officers got on scene, he died. So everybody involved was either deceased or in jail of both of those calls. I got subpoenaed to court 2 years later, and he ended up taking a plea deal. I didn't know. I was told that he was shot 3 times, and then I was told he was stabbed 37 times. And it wasn't until actually this year, and this was probably 3 years ago, just a few months ago, like probably 6 or 8 months ago, one of my coworkers was like, "Yeah, this TV show, like the call you took." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Yeah, so they actually made a TV show on it, and I'd have to look up the name of it, and I'll send that to you. But my voice is on there, like the help is on the way, and I had no idea the outcome of it. So the only reason I got the outcome of that, and I reached out to detectives and stuff, and it just kind of kept getting brushed off and kept getting brushed off. And detectives had moved, different units in the department, so they didn't remember it was on the next one, or I would have to look it up, and kind of just kept getting brushed off. So I finally gave up. I get told about this TV show, and I finally got the outcome, because he was actually, as they said, bludgeoned to death. But I was on the phone with him for almost 25 minutes. So.
Jeez. So the only way you found this out was because of this show?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so I'm glad that you were finally able to get that closure, but geez.
I mean, it doesn't change the fact that he's dead. And
Right.
like
Yeah.
that, I know that sounds morbid, but at the same time, it does. I knew there was nothing I could do any different. I knew there was nothing the officers could do on scene any different. Like there was, he was well far gone. Um, but it definitely helped to know years later. Um, and to hear my voice on there was awful. Because like I listened to the call and I'm like, man, it sounds like if I was a caller, I'd be like, just freaking get him here. And I'm like, I already had help on the way.
Right.
It was a townhome. I needed the numbers. I needed to confirm that's where he was. Um, so it was
Jeez.
like the longest call of my career.
Yeah, those are definitely the ones that stick, right? And there's also triggers that can come along with that
Yeah.
a lot of people, again, especially in the general public, they don't understand. So, for you, that first one that you had mentioned, the phone being set down and hearing, the compressions, any sound, that's similar to that,
Oh
it
yeah.
is a trigger for sure, right? And
Yeah.
there have been a few things that I've heard. I was, and this doesn't compare at all to what you just told me, but I just, in comparison, like sounds and triggers in that aspect of it. There was a phone call that I remember taking. It was late at night. There was this lady who had called in. Her now ex-boyfriend had been stalking her like crazy, and she lives in a wooded area, just middle of nowhere, and she's down in the basement hiding. And we're officers are going as fast as they can to get to her, and I'm on the phone with her, and she's like, I can see like silhouette of him through the windows, like walking
Mm,
around and stuff. And even right now I can hear it, like I'm like someone's pressing the doorbell, but it was the doorbell.
yeah.
It was that sound. I remember she's down there freaking out, and the doorbell goes off. And when it went off, I remember twitching because it was so loud.
Yeah.
And I ended up hearing that doorbell, or a similar sound later on. And the people I'm with are like, "You all right?" I'm like, I'll tell you later. Like,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's hard to explain.
I think that I disagree with you when you
Mhm.
say it's not anything compared to what I said, because if there's one thing that this job has taught me is that even the smallest thing can affect you.
Oh, sure.
Because
Yeah.
we're all humans. We all have
Mhm.
experiences, we all have everything, and there's not one I think that can be, yeah, those especially 2 calls, but the 3 were absolutely terrible. I hope to never take anything like that again.
Mhm.
But, um, I took one actually very similar to you, and it wasn't, she didn't see him in the moment, but said X had been stalking her, different things. Well, officers go out there, didn't make contact twice that day. The next day, it ends up being a full SWAT call out because he breaks into the house, and all kinds of things. And that was like a huge call for our county to really, the police department to say, hey, these are things we need to do differently.
Mhm.
Whether it was the initial calls that they took the night before, and I actually talked to her, and like, I wasn't involved in that SWAT call out, and that's like that call still sticks with me. And it's because, like, hey, I talked to her. And then the next day something so dramatic happens. Like, the call I talked to, it wasn't bad. It wasn't like it was that, um, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't stick because of other reasons. So I think
For
that
sure.
the human element really plays that part.
And I get what you're saying as well. The comparison, like incident type,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the same, but the impact, the
Yes.
ripples. I
Exactly.
got you. Yes. No, you're right. You're right. There's many times where so here's another example. My youngest daughter recently running around, playing around just like a normal kid, right?
Right.
But in the way this job has changed me a bit, she ends up running to the kitchen, and because we were doing like a dinner in the movie and stuff in the
Mhm.
living room, she runs to the kitchen to grab a fork. And I immediately start yelling, do not run with that fork. Do not run with that fork, because she had been playing, right? She had been being a regular
Right.
kid. She's 6 years old. but I see her run that way, and
Yeah.
all I can imagine is her running back, because in dispatch, I took a phone call one time where a kid was running around with the fork, and it got the kid fell forward, and it got lodged in the roof of their mouth, and the parent who called in was just for very good reasons, hysterical,
Right.
trying to get everybody out there. The kid ended up being fine, but that impacted me. So I guess there's a question right there. How has the job changed you?
It's ruined phone calls for me. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that. And not even like I would rather, if we're gonna sit here and text and
Mhm.
have this please call me. Like I don't want to have to go back, and I don't want to look at a screen all the time. Like it depends on the situation.
Yes.
But I don't want to, everyone's like, man, I talk on the phone all day. I look at screens all day too. And my biggest comment is I don't want to have a relationship with a screen. Like if I can't it's all that friendship is, I don't want it. And but on phone calls, it has gotten to the point where you learn to take control of the call, and you learn to okay, what do you need right now?
Right. Yes.
Like a perfect example, when my grandfather was still alive, he was one of the ones who passed away in 2021. My aunt called. I was going to talk to my mom and whatnot, and I was there. I picked up my mom's phone. She was busy, and she's going on with the story, and she's like, well, he wore this flannel shirt and they did this and that, and I'm like, I don't care what he wore, get to the story. What's
yeah.
I'm sorry, he's not a suspect that I need that description for.
Right. It's not a warrant. I don't need confirmation. I need
just, okay, get to the point. And I felt really bad. I didn't mean to do, but you're just so used to that it's definitely ruined that part of it. I always say dating sucks anyways. Marriage, I can only imagine all of that. This job makes it 10 times harder. I'm night shift. I will always be night shift. I literally woke up to come talk to you and hang out with you. So
oh yes, thank you.
But people don't and even friendships, they don't hey, I work nights, or I've always said this job, you shy away from those who are different from you and different mindsets than you, and you gravitate towards those who have similar mindsets because they understand. It's probably not the healthiest thing that we all do, but you hold those who understand a little bit closer, and it makes it very hard to make friends or to even date, or even I don't tell people right away what I do, because it's the new fad to hate police. And my job is to protect my brothers and sisters in all lines, the red line, the blue line, don't hate my best friends, so that makes it really challenging. I've already had issues with trust, but this job makes it that much harder to open up. You don't trust.
Yes.
You don't trust, you don't share, and you're always looking for, I look for red flags. And that's been something to learn to navigate through, and actually try to let people in, or even anything other than surface level stuff, if that makes sense.
No, I know exactly what you mean, because I mean, I still have all of my friends and everyone that I grew up with in Southwest Michigan, and there'll be certain things that happen, or I'll say certain things dude, and I'll say,
yeah.
what? That's not cold hearted. That's just me being real.
Yes. Or the dark humor that you get.
Yes.
And I'm like, dude, did I get this from dispatch? Did I get this from search and rescue? My whole joke is I look for dead people on my off days. So people don't take that lightly.
Right. Yeah. I used to tell friends and family, if I didn't laugh about certain things,
Yeah.
if I didn't have this type of dark humor,
Right.
I would be crying more than
Yes.
anything else, and I might not have lasted as long as I did had I not been like that.
Sometimes
And
you just have to laugh at callers, the situations, and not that you're laughing at them, but it's just like if you don't laugh, it and you bottle it in, it overpours at some point. And when it does finally like overpour, you want to be able to navigate that and not let it really take over you. So you've got to learn
Exactly.
to kind of laugh it off. That
I
makes
love
sense.
that.
Yeah.
It has been awesome to have you on this episode. Holy shit, I could talk to you all day. Like this has been excellent.
It's been fun.
Yes, this has been awesome. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
As we go into the wrap up of this episode, and it's one that I've been asking pretty much everybody because I like to hear what people say on this question, and what it is if you could go back in time with the knowledge that you have now to talk to yourself in the beginning of your dispatch career, what advice would you give yourself?
Ooh, that's a question there.
That's deep.
That's a question there. Everyone always talks about like healing their inner child and like talking to their little child. It's like your inner dispatch child. I think the most cliche is it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think is one of the biggest ones, but it's okay to embrace who you are as you do the job and how it affects you. The relationships that I've made are amazing, but the relationships that I have lost or have lost the closeness of because of the job, it's okay, but I think knowing that sooner, I would have been able to process things a lot better, and to actually accept myself for who I am, the job that I do, and the impact that I could potentially have on people. I think that was something I had to really grow into.
Perfect. Damn, that was so. This whole episode has been awesome. Again, thank you for the job that you do, and just for coming on and being so willing, and just having the courage to do all of this and what you
Thank
do.
you for
And
having
again,
me. It's been a ride. The whole career's been a ride, but this has been meeting people like you has been worth it. Absolutely.
well, I feel the same way about you because you just threw everything out. That was awesome. Thank you so very much. I will be right back here with you in just one moment.
Yeah.
And for those who are watching and listening, holy shit. If you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services. And if you want to become a subscriber of the podcast, whether it be a patron of the podcast or on Facebook, you can do so. You can check us out, help support us. That is patreon.com/WTT podcast. And then on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast /support. And both of them end up coming with some pretty sweet swag, discounts to the store, and there's a bunch of other stuff. Patreon, I will say, has way more than Facebook. Facebook is kind of like a Patreon light, but either way, a lot of bonus content and everything that goes out there. So if you want to hook us up, check us out there. And then if I said it already, I now I don't know. But this was sponsored by InDigital. And then you can see this on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, as well as Facebook. And then you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.